Welcome to the Designate project update session. My name is Graham Hayes, also known as Mugsy in IRC, and I'm the project team lead for Designate. I work for Verizon in the cloud platform team, in the operations department. So I would hope most people here know what Designate is. We started way back in 2012 as a way for OpenStack installs to manage DNS reliably. We were deployed in public cloud back in 2013. We were actually a production service before we were even officially part of OpenStack. And in Liberty, we were officially added as one of the projects in OpenStack. Right now, we have about 12% of production deploys are using Designate. That number seems static though, so I'm not sure how reliable the user survey is for that. Pretty much every single distro at this point includes Designate either by default or as a tech preview, so it's pretty easy to install it, to try it out. So in Queens, we tried to get a lot of work done. We didn't get a huge amount. We did manage to complete all the project goals. We are still, Python 3.5 is actually tested now, thankfully. One of our contributors in the last couple of weeks has this tested now in Python 3.5 and 3.6. We actually did remove the V1 API as well. So if anyone relied on the V1 API, I'm sorry, but it's gone. There's no way, it's not coming back either. And one of the major, for me anyway, one of the major milestones was that Designate was added to the interop guidelines. So if you run a public cloud that has Designate or you ship a distro, you can get a certified OpenStack DNS badge to prove that you're running the Designate and running it in an interoperable fashion. For Rocky, the list isn't a huge amount of features. For anyone who was in the board TC/UC meeting on Sunday, there was a slide that it shows the contributors. Unfortunately, we are still quite low. We're in a better place than we were a year ago when I wrote about it, but we still need contributors to actually get major feature work done. So for Rocky, the things we're aiming to get done are getting just the record type support for DNSSEC. So this won't be actually supporting putting keys into Designate and having your zone signed, but it's the support for the zone or for the record types and their data will be put into Designate. A common request actually we got over the last 6 months was the ability to edit information in the SOA record at the top of the zone. So things like refresh, negative caching, and all the other information. So there's work underway for that. Currently, we're trying to figure out a way of doing it in a backward compatible fashion. And one of the other major questions that I've had over the last couple of years is shared zones. So we will be adding support for sharing a zone between multiple projects, which is particularly useful now with the Neutron Designate integration, where you can add a zone to a Neutron network. But because multiple projects can access a Neutron network, there was issues trying to have the same domain label for all of the host names. So that work has started. It'll be a very basic, it'll be an enablement of a project can write to a zone or they can't do anything to the zone. And they will be able to update all records. So it's not, the fine-grained control may come at a later time, but again, if people are willing to write it, we're more than willing to review the code. It's just we don't have anyone to write it. And we're still continuing on slowly with the online schema migration, so the ability to move through versions of Designate on the database without having to do any API downtime at all. Right now, your DNS servers are separate, so they never stop serving DNS traffic, but you can have a couple of seconds of downtime as you restart API servers, do the database migration and restart everything. Beyond Rocky, this is again very similar to the Sydney update. We need concrete feedback about long-term features. If you are working in a company with product management that has a vision, please come talk to us. We're open. The major problem, I think, why we have so little contributors is that, for the most part, Designate is stable. We do the basic CRUD, create, update, delete for DNS reasonably well. So that's why it's not, DNS isn't necessarily the new thing. It's never going to be shiny or attract crowds of thousands, but it's kind of like plumbing. Nobody notices when it's there, but when it breaks, you're ankle deep in stuff. So if you have ideas about what we should do, if you think there's an improvement we can make, please come talk to us. Tomorrow at 1:50 in room 220, which is just around the corner, we have our feedback session. So this is traditionally where people come into a room and shout at the core team about bugs or features they want. So you're welcome to come in and just have a discussion with us. Or even just if you want to just bounce ideas off us, you're more than welcome to come in. So for the cross-project work, we are trying to work, again, with the limited manpower with Neutron. So this is probably a longer term idea. This is 2 or 3 cycles to improve. Right now, there's a very good integration with Neutron, where Neutron will call out to Designate when you create a port and create records when needed. But we want to add support for different types of network. So if you have a shared Neutron network, allow each project to set their own DNS zone for that network. So whenever they create a port, it'll automatically only be added to their zone. And also allow for, right now, the internal resolution in Neutron uses the standard OpenStack local domain, not the DNS domain. That's only gets used for external resolution. So try to work with the Neutron team to enable that. And this is something that we've been trying to work on for a while, but it's more complex than we thought, is adding reverse DNS support for provider networks. Right now, we only support floating IPs. We have a reverse DNS API endpoint that lists out your floating IPs and let you set the pointer records. But we want to expand that out to allow admins to say this provider network is also something we should allow pointers be managed for. So again, feedback is tomorrow or the OpenStack DNS channel. I'm in there every day at some point. The mailing list, or if you just want to bounce ideas off me, that's my email. Please give me a shout. And if your company is interested in donating resources or getting somebody involved, and you just want to find out what skills we need or what sort of person you think should be we think should be put onto the project, again, reach out. You'll see me around the conference as well. I'm not exactly unrecognizable. So just come up and talk to me about it. So that's pretty short because there's not a huge amount of work right now, but this is the major things that if you're tempted to tip your toe into Designate, jump into the channel, jump into the RC meeting. On our bug list, we keep a set of bugs that are tagged low-hanging fruit. They're bugs that are not necessarily hugely complex, but will give you a good idea of how Designate works and how the review process works and how we interact as a team. The major thing is docs, as always. As you're onboarding, if you see our docs are wrong, either file bugs or just send us an email, or even better, send a fix. But just let us know that they're wrong. When you work on the project so much, you can get a little bit blind to the docs being wrong. And even just booting up Designate and finding features you want us to work on is useful. And with that, very quick, does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Hey, so there used to be an IPA backend for Designate.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any plans? Does anyone have any plans to resurrect that? Or?
We unfortunately will need free IPA to make some changes. So the way that the old backends used to work with the old V1 API, we would make an API call in, the Designate would call directly to the backend to do the update and then return to the user. So with V2, it's asynchronous, so you call in to Designate to make a change, it gets buffered, and we use the DNS protocol to push the changes. Unfortunately, free IPA doesn't support secondary zones. It's probably fairly simple for free IPA to do because it's actually just bind behind it. So it should be a relatively easy change to get that fixed. But I'd be delighted to have it because free IPA is heavily deployed in a lot of areas.
We use bind as a backend for Designate, and then we just delegate to the bind service for the IPA now. So.
Yeah, if you could cut out that extra step, that'd be good. Yeah.
So I have the guide that wrote the Ansible playbook to deploy in triple and HA.
Okay.
There was not such a thing that we had an option for. There was a lot of painful information that we can cover a little more about. Wonder, how if there's any updates on high availability option or anything like that coming around because.
Pretty much everything's HA now. Actually, everything in the new model is HA, is active-active. So it's literally just start up more of them. As long as they can talk to the RabbitMQ server and the database server for Designate Central, it's good. The only one is the producer service needs to have a lock manager. So that preferably should be something like Zookeeper, but you can use MySQL or Redis or Memcache with varying guarantees. There's no catastrophic effects if it fails. We use it just to shard out work. So every couple of hours we do a set of tasks on all the zones. And the producer just uses the sharding to produce those tasks. So if it loses connection, you'll have 3 times as many of those tasks running, but it won't actually break anything.
But is that backported to Pike, or is this not moving to containers?
We are completely agnostic to containers, but it should be in Pike. Yes, that was all in Pike.
Like I said, we had to write it from scratch. We had
Oh, for the Ansible stuff? Yeah, there would,
or anything like that, installation-wise.
yeah.
Controllers.
OpenStack Ansible has it now. I don't know if it was back in Pike though.
It was starting on Kava.
Okay.
OpenStack Ansible, Kava has Designate playbooks. And we do a lot of work in backward with six playbooks.
Now you want to put playbooks in there and find servers.
Yeah. There is there was nothing for Ansible. There was Puppet and Chef available, but unfortunately, and Charms. No, actually, sorry, yeah, that's very true. There has been Charms for a very long time, actually. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the team is small enough that we didn't have a huge amount of time to go write deployment tooling as well as the actual software. Unfortunately, the Designate team actually back in Pike wrote a load of Ansible, but it's closed source.
We'll probably open it up for the triple O part, because this is specifically for triple O.
There is some work happening for Triple O as well, as far as I'm, the gentleman sitting behind you.
That's me.
So, yeah, there's a lot of work going on in the tooling for that, thankfully. Yeah.
Are you guys cooperating anything with any other industry, DNS industry like DNS OARC or maybe with ISC, who's the authors of Bind?
I follow the DNS OARC list, and I now and again will post, but that is the extent, unfortunately. My job has enough time to do this and my job-ish, unfortunately.
I think, if you guys are low on resources, that could be somewhere where you could maybe help, because there's, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of the, top level domains, especially in Europe, like .nl and .se, they're nonprofits, right? So they do have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would be delighted to support you.
Yeah, there's a hackathon happening in Dublin that I'm going to in June, I think. Okay. That a lot of them will be at, so it's a good idea to try and get stuff out of them.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If we have just a minute,
Yeah.
can you expand on the neutron integration, specifically you were mentioning the DHCP domain?
Yeah.
So is there just a complete wall between neutron handling all the internal DNS and Designate handling all the external DNS?
Yeah. So the way the integration works is you set a DNS name on a port, and you set a DNS domain on a network, just for background. And then when you attach a floating IP to that port, they take those pieces of information and publish it to Designate. But the internal neutron network, the DHCP, is it DNS mask instance? Yeah, DNS mask instance will resolve the DNS name of the port, but it won't use the DNS name of the DNS domain of the network. It'll use the neutron.conf's DHCP domain. There's a bug open. Miguel has told me he will try and get it fixed. I believe it came up today in the Neutron Nova ops session as well. So, right. Any other questions? Any other actual questions? Okay. Thank you very much.